Designer notes. So this is from Sid Meier's, correct? GD column 5, Sid's rules. The following was published in January 29 issue of Game Developer magazine. Most game developers are familiar with Sid's dictum, that a good game is a series of interesting choices. True. I want to have interesting choices in my game too. And that being, you know, whatever you add as a power up to the game, it affects multiple things, not just one. For example, if you add duration, which could be, let's say, debuff duration or something, it's just called duration, but it also makes projectiles last longer. Stuff like that. Hidden things that you can uncover by playing the game. Okay. Let's see here. In fact, my co-columnist, whatever that is, Damon Schubert, started his recent article on player choice, October 28. That's a long time ago. By referencing this famous quote. However, over the course of his career, Sid has developed a few other general rules of game design, which I heard him discuss many times during my 7 years from 2000 to 2007 at his studio. And that is Firaxis Games. I don't know that studio at all. Is that actually the studio behind Sid Meier's? Firaxis Games, world-renowned game development studio with an unwavering mission to build games that stand the test of time. And these are for Sid Meier, founder Sid Meier. Yes, it is. Okay, so these are team and studio. They are making the Sid Meier's games. Yeah, Civilization. There we go. These guys are GigaChats. They create the same game. I don't know why they create it so many times, but it seems to me that the community really likes them. Okay, I have never played Sid Meier's myself. However, I'm currently dealing with balancing my game. And so that is very interesting to me because these insights are quite practical lessons for designers, they are also worthy of discussion. And that's what I mean. Double it or cut it by half. So essentially, these are numerical values, right? So, for example, what I'm trying to do at the moment is I'm balancing how much starting gold I have with how much the heroes cost. And then I'm just, you know, I'm placing heroes down, I'm letting the game run and see, well, can I even beat this level? Is it possible? Okay, I managed to beat round 1. What about round 2? Can I beat round 2? Barely. I managed to do it. Okay, 270 monies. What can I do with this money? How much do the upgrades cost? And is it possible to win with the money that I've been given and the upgrades that I could do? I can't do all of the upgrades yet. That's part of, you know, progressing through the game. But however, there should still be the possibility to win, of course. I can place another defender here, for example. And then hopefully that's enough. Put him, let's say, here. Now, the reason why I don't place these is because they are not balanced. So they don't exist. Okay, they do not exist. Let's see. Can I win? Well, barely. Actually, I lost 1 life, so that's bad. So yeah, essentially, double it or half it. So that's what I did. They had half as much before. Let's see. Good games can rarely be created in a vacuum, which is why many designers advocate an iterative design process. So that's what I do. I'm already doing it correctly. So we are iterating, right? So basically, we generate 1 point in time. We think, okay, that kind of works out. And then you add in more to that point. So, for example, I balanced the game around the defender first. It worked. Was reasonably difficult. Then I added in the mage. And I had to rebalance a lot of things. Not so much the values of HP, but essentially how do colliders work. How does the placement affect how many units the mage can hit. How fast he should attack. And ultimately then, if you have a lot of them on the map, well, how can that fit into still being able to beat the level, but not making it too easy so that the user falls asleep? So the choice, upgrades need to be impactful, essentially. So we're iterating on this at the moment. They don't feel that impactful yet, at least on the mage. Yeah, let's see. During which a simple prototype of the game is built very early. Well, for me, it's not very early. I've been doing this for 3 years now. But I have learned that what you need is a prototype, yeah. And then iterate it on repeatedly until the game becomes a shippable product. See, that's essentially what I'm doing. That's what you do. Like, you call these systems and system interaction and scaling of systems, essentially. And then you obviously also have to factor in, well, is it balanced or not? Exactly. So I don't know how long this part takes. I'm pretty sure this takes a long time to get right. And I'm not going to move on from this point until I feel good about it. And so when people ask me, well, like, how long does it take to make the demo? When is the demo out? I don't know. I'm still balancing. I'm still iterating. Sid called this process finding the fun. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. It's like I'm playing the game and I'm trying to find, okay, what's fun? What can, like, let's say, right? Let's say this. You are on the map, you get the fireball. And then you use the fireball, it looks really good. Boom, massive explosion. I think that would feel really good. And then you're always excited to see the fireball. However, like, you have multiple upgrades, right? So I lost. Man. So they all kind of need to be good. Okay. Anyways, let's continue here. Let's not digress too much. Iterated on repeatedly until the game becomes a shippable product. Yeah, I think that part is really important. And so that's what... I don't want to digress too much, but that's what Hollow Knight did. So you guys know how Hollow Knight is a really good game. Massively successful. 300,000 reviews. And yeah, my head is not in the way. In this game right here, what they did was they had one level. And in that one level, they designed the entire system, the entire game essentially. They balanced it, iterated until they had something that felt really good. And so that's why ultimately I have one level. I don't have two, I don't have three, I just have one. It is really important that this one level feels as good as it can. Call it test level, not first level gameplay. No, the test level is the level where you test the game in. And then you just build the content for the game. What pros do is keep getting the game into playtesters' hands as soon as possible. Yes, but when you're not even done building the systems yet, how can you have playtesters? I don't see a point putting the game into someone's hand when you don't even have the full systems done. Because ultimately they will give you feedback on something that's not completed. Second opinion. Yeah, but it's not complete yet. I don't need shooting to enjoy the driving in GTA. I don't know. Well, let's read on. Let's read on. You know, maybe you guys are right. Maybe that's a point they make later on, right? So let's just move on. Sid called this process finding the fun and the probability of success is often directly related to the number of times the team can turn the crank on the loop of developing an idea. What does that mean? Sorry, like that English? Let's try this again. Calls this process finding the fun and the probability of success is often directly related to the number of times a team can turn the crank on the loop of developing an idea. What does that even mean, man? Sorry, I'm not natively English. Can someone translate that, please, into proper English for me? Like, what does that mean? I know that turning the crank basically means locking something in. How quickly they can iterate on ideas. Ah, I see. Okay, thank you very much. So basically the second part means the probability of success is often directly related to the number of times a team can turn the crank on the loop of developing an idea. So essentially how fast they can iterate on the idea. If you have a feature task cycle, let's say 1 week, then turning the crank is the same as 1 week iterations. So the more you can iterate, the higher the probability of success. Aha! So essentially if we have something, let's say, let's use my game as an example, okay, bro? Let's say we have this mage right here and we can show colliders in the level, right? And then we play. Let's say you can iterate on certain abilities, certain things, frame by frame. The ability to debug this. That could help you iterate faster. Stuff like that. Right? Depending on how fast it goes. So things that help you iterate. Very cool. Let's see. Playtesting the result and then adjusting based on feedback. Aha, adjusting based on feedback. There it is, guys. So what you guys are saying is, or like a strategy that would be smart or helpful for me is, I give you the game to test. I do change a feature in the game and then you guys test it. However, what I fear happens is the following. Since this is not your job, I have to take this with a grain of salt. I'm not a studio. When I push an update for the first time, there's going to be huge interest. Then when I push an update for the second time, the interest will be lower. And the more updates I push, the slower or the minuscule the changes are, the less people will care over time. That's just how it works. So we have to factor this in too. Let's see, developers should aim for significant changes that will provoke a tangible response. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. That's why this takes so long. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm doing this already. Let's see. If a unit seems too weak, don't lower its cost by 5%. Instead, double its strength. Damn, if players feel overwhelmed with too many upgrades, try removing half of them. In the original Civilization, the gameplay kept slowing down to a painful crawl, which Sid solved by shrinking the map in half. The point is not that the new values are likely to be correct. The goal is to stake out more design territory with each successive iteration. Stake out more design territory, okay. Sid Meier, yeah. Imagine the game design space of a new game to be an undiscovered world. The designers may have a vague notion of what exists beyond the horizon, but without external experimentation and testing, these assumptions remain purely theoretical. Thus, each radical change opens up a new piece of land for the team to consider before settling down for the final product. Okay, so basically what that means is, if we translate this to the tower defense game, we tried to give the mage infinite AoE damage, so every attack he did would be AoE damage. We had to test that out. It didn't work out, so we had to reiterate. I feel like that's essentially what they're saying here. Thus, each radical change opens up a new idea. They are purely theoretical unless you put them in place and you test them out. One good game is better than two great ones. Wait, isn't good? No, wait. Isn't great better than good? Let's see. Sid liked to call this one the covert action rule, a reference to a non-altogether successful spy game he made in the early 90s. Not altogether successful, okay. The mistake I made was actually having two games competing with each other. Uh-oh. I have that too, that's the problem. I have tower defense game and hero micromanagement. But I'm trying to tone back on the hero micromanagement a little bit. So yeah, that's true. We're trying to do two things. So let's see. There was an action game where you break into a building and do all sorts of picking up clues and things like that. And then there was the story, which involved a plot where you had to figure out who the mastermind was and what cities they were in. And it was an involved mystery type plot. Individually, each part could have been a good game. Together, they fought with each other. You would have this mystery that you were trying to solve, then you would be facing this action sequence, and you'd do this cool action thing. And you'd get out of the building, and you'd say, what was the mystery I was trying to solve? Question mark. Ah, true. So you forgot because of the action sequence, right? Yeah, that happens. Cakez, read my message above to the Twitch as saying you need playtests. You need to have some kind of thought out balance before doing playtests so you can adjust it further. No point in scrambling something together so the players just get mad and can't play the game. Reply with the Twitch chatter saying that you need playtests. Okay, I think you're right. I think it would be more work than finishing the systems first. I don't understand this. Let's see. So this next part is really difficult to read. Covert action integrated a story. And action poorly because... Wait, covert action integrated a story and... so covert action is the game. Sid Meier's Covert Action Classic on Steam. Aha! It is a game. I was so confused. What is this guy talking about here? So this is essentially the game he was talking about, which is a mix of action and adventure. So a story together with action. So covert action integrated a story and action poorly because the action was actually too intense. You'd spend 10 minutes or so of real time in a mission, and by the time you got out, you had no idea what was going on in the world. In other words, even though both sections of the game were fun on their own, their coexistence ruined the experience because the player could not focus her attention on one or the other. This rule points to a larger issue, which is that all design choices only have value in relation to one another, each coming with their own set of costs/benefits/trade-offs. Choosing to make a strategic game also means choosing to not make a tactical one. Aha, that's an idea, maybe fun on its own, but still not make the game better if it distracts the player from the target experience. Indeed, this rule is clearly the reason why Civ franchise has never dabbled with in-depth tactical battles every time combat occurs. Okay. However, sometimes multiple games can coexist in harmony with each other. Cid's own Pirates is an example of a successful game built out of the collection of fighting, sailing and dancing minigames. However, these experiences were always very short, a few minutes at the most, leaving the primary focus on the meta game of role-playing a pirate. Each short challenge was a tiny step along a more important larger path of plundering all Spanish cities or rescuing your long-lost relatives. I think that's ultimately the problem for me. I'm trying to make a tower defense game, but I'm also adding in MMORPG mechanics. Let's say we have like a normal level, we place a unit here, and then I place a unit somewhere outside, very far away from, let's say, the team. This all centered around here. Then ultimately what would happen is the boss would attack this guy always because he's alone. And so that basically means you have to place the unit in a better position so that he doesn't get attacked all the time, but maybe randomly, because there is no unit that's placed alone. And alone means there's no other unit in the next vicinity of him, like in the radius of, I don't know, let's say 100 pixels or 200 pixels. That unit would be alone, but maybe you place another unit that's alone. Now it makes a decision based on those two units. Something like that is what I thought. Like, and that, maybe that's a bit too much for the player. That's what makes your game interesting. Fuck no, it's a good feature. Just an example. I think it's a good feature too, yeah. Ultimately, I'm aware of the fact that you can have too much in the game. So it's really, really important that we do this right. Let's see here. Each short challenge was a tiny step along a more important larger path of plundering all Spanish cities or rescuing your long-lost relatives. Another example of a successful mix of separate sub-games is XCOM, which combined a tactical turn-based squad-level combat game with a strategic real-time resource management game. As with Pirates, what makes XCOM work is that the game chooses a focus. In this case, the compelling tactical battles between your machines and the invading aliens. Aha! So what that means is, I need to choose a focus. What is the focus? I think the focus should be in my game on the combat. The focus should be the combat. The fighting back and attacking. Me attacking the enemies attacking back. Countering, choosing the right upgrades. That should be the focus. The money, maybe not so much. The money management. It will be there. There will be money management. But the number one focus should be essentially the combat, the fighting, and the building of certain blobs of strong supporting towers each other. What things, yeah, that's essentially what I think I should be doing. I hate my ADHD, you know, I hate my ADHD, I hate it! Why do I start reading a message when I'm saying something? What things does enemies hitting your towers and besides just needing an additional healer tower? Currently, what happens? So that's a valid question. What is the, how can I counter essentially enemies attacking my units and my units taking damage? Essentially placement. Placement and the correct defenses against the enemy. And of course healing if I'm doing it wrong. So for example, let's say I put all my units in one place. Let's say we have a bunch of money, right? And we put all of our units here. Like what you like to do in a tower defense game. Of course, you like to put units together. You know, maybe you have a ranger here and you have a mage here and you buff each other. Now, I will give you an enemy that attacks all of them at once using AoE. Now, you can't place them like this anymore. Maybe you have to place one out. And then he gets attacked. And then you need to make sure that this guy is in range for a healer. Maybe like this. Ignore the blinking, by the way. I'm working on it, okay? Positional placement together with upgrades. That's the idea. And then together, pair that together with, you know, MMORPG mechanics of soaking. But again, like, we'll get to this, right? We're not there yet. So that would be the focus of the game. Let's see here. The high-level strategic metagame exists only to provide a loose framework in which these battles, which could take as long as half an hour each, actually matter. One doesn't fight the aliens to get to manage resources later. Instead, one manages resources to get to perform better and have more fun in future battles. I agree, the rest only complements the focus. So for example, the combat, the fun combat or the interactive combat is supported by the skill tree, the different choices in the skill tree. And then maybe meta progression, changing the combat in meaningful ways. And then maybe in the future consumables, buffing the units, stuff like that, to make the combat more interesting. Yeah, so do your research after the game is done. Okay, we're not there yet. Many of the most successful games of all time, SimCity, Grand Theft Auto, Civilization, Roller Coaster Tycoon, The Sims, have real-world themes, which broadens their potential audience by building the gameplay around concepts familiar to everyone. Yeah, like basically the more audience you can hit. However, creating a game about a real topic can lead to a natural but dangerous tendency to cram the product full of bits and trivia and obscure knowledge to show off the amount of research the designer has done. Okay, this tendency spoils the very reason why real-world themes are so valuable. That players come to the game with all the knowledge they already have. Everybody knows that gunpowder is good for a strong military. Police stations reduce crime and that carjacking is very illegal. As Sid puts it, the player shouldn't have to read the same books the designer has read in order to be able to play. True. I think that's actually really smart. So basically use common sense. For example, fire burns, ice freezes, right? That would be like the very most basic thing about this. Games still have a great potential to educate, just not in the ways that many educators expect. While designers would still be careful not to include anything factual incorrect, the value of an interactive experience is the interplay of simple concepts, not the inclusion of numerous facts and figures. Oh, inclusion, you heard that? Many remember that the world's earliest civilization sprang up along river valleys in the Nile and the Tigris Euphrates. Okay. The Indus, but nothing gets that concept across as effectively as a few simple rules in civilization governing which tiles produce the most food during the early stages of agriculture. Furthermore, once the core work is done, research can be very valuable to finish. A very valuable way to flesh out a game's depth, perhaps with historical scenarios, flavor text or graphical details. Just remember that learning a new game is an intimidating experience, so don't throw away the advantages of an approachable topic by expecting the player to already know all the details when the game starts. Yeah, so essentially tutorials. And so then obviously you go into more detail and slowly expand, which is also what the Animal Well creator talked about. Staggering game mechanics, essentially. Uncovering the game bit by bit, but not too much at the start. Okay, let's see. The player should have the fun, not the designer or the computer. Okay, but I'm the player too, you know? Creating story-based games can be an intoxicating experience for designers, many of whom go overboard with turgid backstories full of proper nouns, rarely used constants, and apostrophes. Furthermore, games based on complex, detailed simulations can be especially opaque if the mysterious inner workings of the algorithmic model remain hidden from view. Okay? As Sid liked to say, with these games, either the designer or the computer was the one having the fun, not the player. Rarely used consonants. Ah, I see. So like words, right? For example, during the development of Civilization 4, we experimented with governments types that gave significant productivity bonuses, but also took away the player's ability to pick which technologies were researched, what buildings were constructed, and which units were trained, relying instead on a hidden internal model to simulate what the country's people would choose on their own. The algorithms were, of course, very fun to construct and interesting to discuss. Yeah, but people hated this, of course, because they want to choose themselves. The players, however, felt left behind. The computer was having all the fun, so we cut out the feature. Smart. Yeah, like so because people like choice. Players like choice. Player choice is really important. You want to feel like what you do is impactful. And you don't, like, it's essentially, you give it up to RNG, which sucks. It's like rolling a 6, but you only rolled a 1, or you lost. That sucks. Let's see, further. Games require not just meaningful choices, but also meaningful communication to feel right. Giving players decisions that have consequence, but which they cannot understand is no fun. Okay, role-playing games commonly fail at making this connection, such as when the player is required to choose classes or skills when rolling a character before experiencing even a few seconds of genuine gameplay. I hate that so much, because you might be doing a wrong choice, yeah. How are players supposed to decide between a barbarian, a fighter, or a paladin before understanding how combat actually works and how each attribute performs in practice? Choice is really only interesting when it's both impactful and informed. True. So that's, I think, unfortunately I have to say it, but that's how Dark Souls, I think Dark Souls makes this mistake with the starting items. However, like, it's just a tiny aspect of the game. It's not the majority of the game. And you can still play any character in any way you like. You just start out with better stats. So they do explain it a little bit to you, but yeah. Thus, in Sid's word, the player must always be the star. As designers, we need to be the player's greatest advocate during the game's development, always considering careful how design decisions affect both the player's agency and the world, and his understanding of the underlying mechanics. Man, these are giga chats. These guys have been making awesome games since forever. And I totally agree. And the most interesting thing that I think they talked about, which I totally agree with, is the iteration. Keep iterating on your process. It's right here. This is the one that I find the most interesting. Iterate it on repeatedly until the game becomes a shippable product. In my opinion, this is the most important point. You just keep making it better. And you try to make it better not for yourself, but for the player. So that the player has the maximum amount of fun. Let's see, there are some comments here. Excellent points, Soren. Let's see here. I believe the quote, "One good game is better than two great ones," is backwards. Don't you mean one great game is better than two good ones? Pretty sure I've seen this quote before. I think it's the reverse, right? Me too. I was a bit confused with this. I always have asked for Sid to revisit Covert Action, but to pull it together and to make it a great game of it, I'm pretty sure he could keep both of the original parts as streamlined them together. Yeah, but at some point, more good games is better than one great game. True, 3 or 4 good games is better than one great game. I don't know, man. I mean, take a look at this. 116 reviews. Which civilization should we take a look at? 5? Bro, like, how many good games do you want to make, bro? To get to this level? How many do you need? You know what a good game is? We saw a video of this the other day. Unicycle Pizza Delivery. That's a good game. It earned decent money. 105 reviews. Very good. This one, also a good game. Very positive. This one earned millions. So, this one is huge. So yeah, I don't know. You need to make quite a few good games. Okay, I hope this was interesting and helpful. For me, it certainly was, especially this part right here. I said it again. I said it before. I'm going to say it again. This part, I think, is the most important part.